The release of Suisui has created a pretty interesting discussion in the community in my opinion. Mainly how some characters are simply a lot more fun than others. Now first, I'm gonna say that fun is incredibly subjective. For example, for most people I've seen, they believe Imeth to be an okay character in terms of fun factor. But for me, she's my favorite character to play in the entire game. So obviously, fun is going to be an incredibly subjective topic. But most people seem to agree that Lucilla and Suisui have dragged Hiyuki down. Hiyuki was seen as one of the most fun characters in the game, but now, the optimal way to play her has become rather boring compared to when she first came out. So let's dive into that. So what do people consider fun? From what I've seen, the general consensus whether a character is fun or not is largely dependent on two things. Those two things are skill expression as well as autonomy. Imeth Fusion Burst has one of the highest skill ceilings in the entire game, but people still rate Imeth below other DPS characters because her forte skill makes her feel like she's playing herself. A character that gets criticized even more than Imeth and has been one of the most criticized in the entirety of version 3.x is Lucilla. Not only is the only form of skill expression during her rotation a tiny timing window that is rather easy to land, the rest of her rotation basically entirely plays itself and gives you no options to even attempt to do anything cool with it. Because the second you cast her ultimate, all you're gonna do is hold the basic attack button until you can use her outro skill. If you try to swap out of this sequence, she's gonna stop doing her third basic, which means that your rotation ends up not finishing itself, and you have to waste time doing her first and second basic again. And if you do finish her third basic, and try to swap out of Lucilla while she's casting Letting It Go, you find out that you are unable to. Abilities that make you unable to swap to a different character have been getting more and more frequent as of late. It started with Mornya's laser, then it got to Imeth's forte skill, then we got things like Hiyuki's forte heavy attacks, and with Lucilla I've already mentioned it. Other characters are very clever about this in different ways. For example, Denia needs to use her skill twice to actually consume dark cores. The first cast has a very long animation, and the second cast a very short animation. Which means that even if you try to swap out of the first cast of her skill, you're not gonna get back to her in time to use the second cast, which means that the skill is going to go on cooldown. These are the tiny and subtle ways in which Kuro Games tries to limit your ability to use your skill. Because very simply, Kuro doesn't actually want this game to have a high skill ceiling. I know it sounds counterintuitive to how the game is structured. Wuwa offers some of the most freedom in which you can order your rotation as possible, and the game has been praised for things like Quickswap. However, at the end of the day, Wuthering Waves is still a gacha game, which means that the company has an agenda that they need to enforce, and if they let their players simply run wild and do whatever they want, that agenda becomes impossible to enforce. Kuro wants as much of the damage increases in this game to be locked behind paywalls as they physically can without the community crying about it. Because simply, if they cannot control the strength of a character, they cannot control the meta. And if they cannot control the meta, they can't sell you their newest strongest toy. Kuro has been vehemently anti-Quickswap since the beginning of the game. When, after CBT2, they changed outro skill to expire when you swap out of the character. And the philosophy of no quickswap has been subtly becoming stronger and stronger. Characters like Shorekeeper that necessitate two intro skills to fully maximize their buffs, or things like Augusta's outro skill that completely break your ability to use her second ultimate if you swap out of Shorekeeper or Verena too fast. Things like this have been in the game for ages, and they've been getting more and more pronounced because Kuro is realizing that Quickswap is incredibly difficult to actually stop. Almost every single bit of cool tech that you have found in the game is in some way unintentional, and the characters that a lot of the community seems to criticize for being less fun, like Luke or, for example, Sigrika, are simply characters that are dev intended. Players automatically find characters more fun the second they get the impression that they are in some way performing a cool maneuver to improve their team's damage output. So if a character does not have any cool tech like this, people will automatically have less fun with the character. For example, with Luke, you're able to dash cancel his golden impale attack, but the only thing you're doing with that is making his rotation faster, so most people don't actually value it as some form of way to make the character more fun. However, if you're doing something like Double Feather Yang Yang, that clearly was not the developer's intention, as they wanted you to do one feather and one azure, so people find characters like Yang Yang to be more fun. Or let's say a character like Hiyuki. Hiyuki has access to 4 EIs per rotation if you play her optimally. This is only doable because Hiyuki has an incredibly wide variety of abilities in her kit, all of which contributing to her forte gain to use 1 extra EI. Being able to do this in a timely manner is something that requires incredibly tight execution. So again, people love these sorts of rotations that feel like they're doing more than what Kuro Games intended. And that is exactly why Suisui is considered a boring character, because Suisui's kit has ridiculous anti-synergy with a ton of the cool strategies that people were using with Hiyuki. Her attack buff is cancelled when Hiyuki swaps out, which means that Quickswap becomes a lot harder to do. Her rotation also has a lot less Quickswap windows than Chisa, which means if you try to Quickswap in the same vein as in an Imeth team, you'll end up having less Quickswap windows from your Suisui to Hiyuki, which means that ultimately, you can't really do a lot of setup either. So ultimately, the complaint that people have with Suisui is that she majorly lowers the amount of skill that you can pour into Hiyuki. And because she's so strong with Hiyuki, a lot of players feel obligated to use Suisui, which means that they feel like they are being punished for being good at the game. I have been vocal against Kuro Games' anti-Quickswap strategies in the past, but at the end of the day, we're still playing their game, and Kuro has a perfectly normal reason for wanting to restrict our ability to come up with cool rotations. And while it's not fun for us, it is unfortunately the reality. However, I do believe that half of the misery that the community feels at this is in some form self-inflicted, because a lot of people will take the word of other players who do a lot of Quickswap shenanigans and try to take them as fact. A lot of people who glaze Quickswap and high skill ceiling characters rarely come up with their own rotations. Which is why I, to cap off this video, am going to urge you to be more creative. Think about how your characters function and try to insert that skill expression in yourself rather than just copying someone else's rotation. My current Fusion Burst Quickswap rotation at my current investment can use 3 Forte skills on Imeth because I made a rotation that allowed me to. I got a cool idea and decided to experiment. Same with characters like Luke. One of my favorite Luke teams to play is a 1-cost team with Luke, Sanhua, and Verena. The reason I ended up finding this team fun in the first place is because I crafted a rotation that was more fun for me. So take this message and take it to heart. If you find that your favorite team has not enough skill expression for you, try to insert some of that yourself. Experiment a bit. Even when you think there aren't any good swap windows, you might be missing something. Just try to experiment. See what you can get away with. And maybe then you'll find some skill expression there that no one else has discovered. Try and take the reins into your own hands, rather than just listening to other people's rotations. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And while you're down there, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, you should join my Discord server, which is linked in the description down below. But that'll be all from me. Peace.